gift that I personally received from this job. I don't even look at it as a job, honestly. I love it. I love coaching. I really do.
Yeah.
But I think seeing kids make those leaps and bounds that, I never got to go through or I never got to see, like it just makes me feel good to like make their dreams come true, or help them get to where they want to be. Whether that be, playing JUCO or, D3, um, or even if it's like I want to go from C team to varsity. Let's get you there, you know? Even those little tiny things. It could be like dribble the ball better, shoot the ball, Every little one of those little victories makes my job
The
so
Bridging
much.
Impact Podcast, transforming leaders on and off the court with host Coach Furtado. Without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. Today, we got Coach Gutierrez on today. He is a coach at La Cueva High School as a JV and varsity assistant coach, and he's been coaching for 4 years. I'm excited to have him on today because we're both young coaches who are hungry to learn. So welcome to the show, Coach G.
I appreciate you having me. I can't wait to, start chatting away.
Yeah, there we go. So how we always start our conversations, we start with, how has the game of basketball made an impact on your life?
Well, basketball has been part of my life for a pretty long time now. I would say it really started to take off around probably like fourth or fifth grade. I was pretty sick as a younger kid, so I didn't really get to play too many sports or, have the same experiences, in and out of like the hospital and stuff like that. But thankfully, everything cleared over. And actually, the coach that I'm with now, I did one of his programs because he used to coach at the high school, the first school that I attended and had that first coaching job with. He used to be the head coach, and he had a little summer program. And I remember he played like one of those, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan mixtape type deals on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that really kickstarted it, And I was like I said, fourth grade or fifth grade or whatever it was. And I finally had that shot, and I just ran with it. It changed my life completely.
100%. Isn't it? No, yeah, keep going.
Oh, I was, ever since that, it's just been, basketball. There's been lapses with the game, of course. We all go through the love to hate it, but now it's all just love, and I can't stress it enough. I love preaching the game of basketball still, and I think that's why I fell in love with coaching so much, to, bring my passion to the kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, bringing that passion is so important. And you brought up an important point of, talking about that mixtape and what it meant for you. And it's, I think, something that we sometimes overlook as coaches is that the little things that we have so much power and influence over our athletes. We never know what exactly is going to connect with them. So how does that experience of you being exposed to the Kobe, Michael Jordan mixtape, kind of influence your coaching now?
Well, it's kind of like how you're saying. You really got to learn each one of your kids, really. Every kid has a different way of, learning or communicating. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned as a young coach is you got to kind of know your personnel and how, you could influence them into loving or into wanting it more, because a lot of you don't know their situations or, how they think. And I think that is, such a big deal. You got to really connect with your players and just find what gets to them, even beyond, the mixtapes or, the drills or being around them or even saying, how's your morning or being there for them. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah. And I think sometimes when I hear the know your personnel kind of statement, right, in the past, with other coaches that I've worked with in terms of, older coaches, they're talking about the on court. But to me, like what you were just talking about is like connecting with them off the court. So can you talk about how you prioritize connecting with your athletes off the court to build that connection and get to know them, more? So you build that trust so then you can have those relationships and have that mixtape moment.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I took the step and I never thought I would be an educator or follow this as my career path. It kind of just happened, but I can't um, that's probably one of the best things that happened to me. This is my dream job. Coaching basketball, being around the sport still is what I want to do. So I want to make sure that I can prove give that to the kids as well. So I every coaching job I take, I try to really make myself known. So for instance, the first school I was at is a smaller independent private school in Albuquerque. Um, but I was working there for about 2 years, so I was around campus, talking to the players, going to different sporting events, whether that be basketball, soccer, you know, whatever that might be. Um, just trying to make sure that I was around. I think that's the big thing that even like whenever I was playing, I didn't really get a lot of. I I made it a vow when I started coaching the sport to be there for my players and really make sure they knew that they had a coach that cared. Because my high school playing career was that was one of the moments where I loved to hate basketball because
Right.
I had like 4 or 5 different coaches in the span of my high school career. There wasn't really any structure. Um, the school was kind of not struggling with athletics, but it wasn't their priority, which is fine. Um, but it kind of took a damper on us as a team. Team morale was not the greatest. We didn't get the same training regimens or money put into the program that we would have liked. So we didn't get to shine um, as we would have liked, even to like the individual level. Like um, increasing our game or whatever that might be. So you know to make sure that my love of basketball was given to those kids tenfold, so they didn't have to go through the same kind of motions I did.
100%. So, would you say that your kind of motivation and drive to be an influential and impactful coach stems from your experience that, learning what not the experience should look like, right? And, wanting to give those training regimens and that connection, that piece that you didn't have when you were in high school? Because, as one of my favorite quotes is, and I honestly don't know who the original person is that said this, but athletes don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So would you say that's a big motivating factor in how you coach?
I would definitely say so. I think the biggest gift that I personally received from this job, I don't even look at it as a job, honestly. I love it. I love coaching. I really do.
Yeah.
But I think seeing kids make those leaps and bounds that, I never got to go through or I never got to see, like it just makes me feel good to like make their dreams come true, or help them get to where they want to be. Whether that be, playing JUCO or, D3, um, or even if it's like I want to go from C team to varsity, let's get you there. You know, even those little tiny things. It could be like dribble the ball better, shoot the ball. Every little one of those little victories makes my job so much better. And it's just one of those things where it's kind of addicting. It's like seeing other people's success brings me so much joy. I just want to see everybody kind of get over that hill and take off.
I love that. Yeah, seeing that other success, watching them grow and develop. I fell in love with that even before I started coaching basketball. I got into, working at the Boys and Girls Club. So just watching kids emotionally grow, like be able to handle certain situations that they may not have been able to handle before. And I'm curious, as young coaches, right, is there anything that you see in the game as a young coach that you kind of want to change that, was maybe a typical stereotype for, older coaches or more experienced coaches?
You know, um, I think, I'm going to hit on one of my previous points, and I think that's knowing the personnel, especially in today's day and age. I feel like kids are just not particularly raised different, but the way they think or the way that you talk to them is, say, much more different than you and I were kids, or you and I
Right.
were younger. I feel like some kids might not react to the face to face yelling in your face anymore as well, or maybe that's just one example, or maybe the way you address somebody or the way you talk to somebody, they just don't understand it because they don't get that maybe in their personal life or their parents or their siblings. Um, so I've been really learning as a coach to like maybe get that one-on-one time, or try to like pull them over aside of practice, get to know your players a little bit better, be like, what am I doing right coaching wise that can help you, what can I change, things like that. I just think the game is always evolving so quickly that it's even hard for you and I to catch up with it. So I think we're all just learning how to be like, okay, well, I need to do this and that, but hold on, let me back up here and here.
I believe the common thread to what you're kind of saying right there is you just being a sponge and being a learner, right? Being able to adapt, right? Am I connecting with this athlete the best that I can? And having those conversations, that dialogue, and asking those questions and having the humility as a coach to seek that feedback. And so, can you talk about how you have grown? I know you've been coaching for 4 years, but if you like look back, what do you think the biggest growth area of development for your coaching from day one on year one to where you are now entering with this new job at La Cueva?
Right. I've thankfully I also picked up I've been coaching club too, so that was also very helpful just to see like a different side of maybe players, parents, whatever. When I first started, I didn't really know, maybe I was a little nervous because I am, like I said, a younger coach, and I was like, well, I get the same respect. Respecting is
Yeah.
huge because you want your kids to like look at you as someone they could come talk to, or whatever that might be. But my biggest struggle was these kids thought I was like their best friend, so they could like talk to me in that way. And I was like, well, hold on a second. That's not the case. I'm here for you, but I'm not your like buddy. I'm here to elevate your game. I'm here to coach you. I'm here to teach you. So I feel like knowing how to have different roles for different, I guess, areas of being a coach. Whether that be like how to talk to the kids, how to talk to the parents, or how you you want yourself to be seen in those lights. So there's different levels that I've had to learn how to kind of adapt to, and how I address myself, or how I say this, or how I talk to the kids, how I talk to the parents. I don't want to be seen in different lights. I just rather want to, be seen as Coach G or Coach Gutierrez, not I could talk to him here and here like this, or, whatever that might be. Because for the longest time, the kids would address me by my first name, and I didn't really like that. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't really know you like that, you know?
Yeah.
But as the years went by, it got better and better, and I think the reputation as coach stuck. So I feel like in those beginning years, or like year and a half, you had to kind of gain your respect. So I feel like that would be like the biggest theme, is kind of gaining your respect as a coach, not only from your kids but from your coaching staff, or whatever that might be.
I 100% agree. I definitely have very similar experiences with that. And I'm curious, like if you could, share any stories or any wisdom and dive a little bit further on setting those boundaries. Cause I'm sure the young coaches that are out there listening as well, like have struggled with this and have the same thing where they'll come up to me and they talk to me different than they talk to the JV and varsity coach because they're older, right? And they,
Right.
I look more like their age, right? I'm in my 20s, I really graduated high school less than 10 years ago. So there is that connection. And I think that's part of the reason that I connect with them better. But at the same time, is it connecting in the right way? So I'm just curious if I can, get to know a little bit how you built those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. We're we're you're preaching to the choir. We're
Yeah.
like, it's the same exact experience. And I think that having the other job also kind of was maybe a little strange to them too. You know, I graduated from the school. Some of them knew of me. Of me, I don't think I knew any of the, players beforehand. But I think the problem was they knew of me and they saw me around, and they were like, "Oh, it's Jude this, and what's up, Jude?" And I said, like the first day of practice, I had to pull my team aside and say, "Hey guys, listen, when you're in the gym, even outside of the gym, this is what I go by. This is my title. I'm just like a teacher. You wouldn't call your teacher by their first name. I would hope you wouldn't call me by my first name. You have to like kind of give them a briefing because I just think it's like I don't believe that yelling at them or trying to drill this idea in it is just going to work. They won't listen. That's my experience. Even outside, even like club or whatever. Like if you're just like yelling and just trying to be like one of those drill sergeant type
Yeah.
coaches, I just feel
Yeah.
like it goes over their head. They won't listen. So you have to like spend some time with it. Definitely like lay your ground rules and have repercussions. You know, because there's definitely I definitely had a lot of that. Not like anything crazy, but like maybe extra drills or push-ups, something like that.
Yeah.
Not like sprinting them or whatever, but um, I just think it's like one of those things that the older coaches definitely get the respect because they are looked at different.
Right.
But I think as the course of the season goes on, you know, they realize that you control their minutes or that you control their whatever. You basically are this king figure, I guess you could say. Like
Right.
you're running the show. So I think once they understand that and they garner that respect and they see you coach, I think that's whenever it kind of shifts.
Right.
And
That makes a ton of sense.
yeah, and I had like one or two of my players on my club team in that break, in that summer spring break in my early years. So I think that also helped because um, we traveled a lot. We were in California, and Nevada, and Texas, and Oklahoma, and we were playing higher competition. So I think since he was a varsity player, um, and he started getting used, he was kind of seen as the leader on the team anyway. Um, or one of the seniors going into senior year. And once they saw him addressing me as coach, I think that's really whenever it was like, oh, okay, if he does it, then I think we should do it too.
Right. And you talked about an important point is just that accountability. Like, obviously, we're going to have to address that maybe more than a more experienced coach. But I think also recognizing our gifts, like, we're going to be able to connect and relate, and they may be more willing to tell us certain things and build that relationship that maybe they wouldn't be with a different coach. So there's like, pros and cons of obviously having that youthful energy, that youthful feel to it. And it's about the art of coaching, right? There's no right answer. We're not going to come in and there's no, for your team and my team. And I feel like one of the things that I've learned, and I had my varsity coach on the podcast a couple months ago, Coach Bizio, and he was, just talking about how his coaching journey, he just had to feel and find that, he started coaching like his old coach, right? A little bit more drill sergeant-y, kind of like what we're talking about, but that wasn't authentic to him, right? They can kind of sniff out, like players are very smart, whether you're
Right.
being authentic or not. And I think, recognizing our own, strengths and skills and what we bring to the table will really help our athletes, understand us and who we are. And so with that and understanding, when it comes to your like, kind of relationship building, how do you make sure that you have the time to do that outside of, obviously coaching? Because I feel like one of the biggest challenges, right, is we only get set amount of hours for practice, right? And
Right.
then you got to go home after, or they have to go home. Like, how do you make sure that you make time to build relationships with athletes, especially in the high school season?
Right. You know, I really have started uh, to do like my own coaching. I really want to start my own like one-on-one type
Yeah.
coaching um, regimen, and I've kind of like started it. Um, so I've been having some one-on-one time with some of the players and trying to like say, I'm here if you need the gym or, whatever that might be. Um, but really it's just my old team that I was a part of was really good at um, team bonding, like setting up like maybe a weekend here and there to go watch a movie or do this in the middle of we had summer tournaments, so maybe we go out to eat after one of our games
Right.
or something like that. I feel like those little things like that really let the players know that, oh, it's like a family. We really are like a little tiny family, or because you see it, the way they talk or the way they act whenever they're there. It's like, oh, I feel comfortable. So if they feel comfortable outside of practice, I feel like they're even more comfortable with us in the gym. So I think trying to be available, but with boundaries,
Yeah, yeah.
because like they'll have they'll text you or whatever, but I'm like, you can't text me at 10 o'clock at night, or like
No.
they'll be like, I'll be like, you could text me if you need like a concern about basketball or whatever. You need a person to talk to about you know I'm not feeling good. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk it out. Let's see what's going on. Like, try and be a mentor, but like you definitely have to have that, you know, boundary.
100%. And then that's the art of it, right? It's like, especially because I feel like as I hear us both talking, I feel like it's sometimes they look at us as a big brother, and there are lines that it's not always like, right? We're working in the gray, right? It's
Right.
hard to kind of go full black, full white, right? In terms of you call me this, you text me here, right? Because then there are certain concerns and things that go on and timing. But I feel like that's at the end of the day, as long as we're kind of doing our best and having them respect our boundaries and, you know, putting our best foot forward to make an impact on them, that's what matters most. And, as we kind of think about, as young coaches, where do you think the game of basketball, but more importantly, coaching should be shifting and moving towards right in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you hope to see change in maybe, and especially, you've seen the club landscape going to so many different tournaments.
Right. Um, I really think you got to really take it your own coaching style. You got to drop the ego. A lot of coaches have like that ego where I'm always right. It's my team. It's my game plan. It's whatever that might be. I've seen it happen tenfold, and I'm sure you have too. Um, I really think that with how fast the game of basketball has shifted and is changing, and it's always going to change, I just feel like sometimes you got to take that ego and put it on the back burner and be able to like take criticism from maybe your players or your fellow coaches. Like be open to criticism and that building, because that's like that it's building you up. It's literally like, oh, don't do that and just constantly belittling each other. It's mostly like, okay, you did this here, but we need you to do this or take this input and not get your feelings hurt because it's not what you had in mind. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like there's just too much of a common ground of ego and coaches and not being able to, you know, adapt and change. I just feel like it's in today's world, it's just inevitable.
100%. So you're kind of talking about like that lifelong learning, like you were talking about. I feel like there has to be some aspect of humility. I'm curious, if you have any thoughts on, pieces of feedback that you would be willing to share that you either received from a varsity coach, from a mentor, or from an athlete that made you kind of like, question like, oh, okay, maybe I'll start doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. The first head coach I was under, his name is Coach Clifton Davidson. Um, he is still the head coach at that first school I was at. Um, but he completely was a mentor to me. He my senior year, he was at, like the JV. I can't remember if he was the head coach of JV or the assistant coach of JV. But he kind of knew of me, and I was lucky enough to be part of his coaching staff for a long time, and I definitely took his advice. He would just say like little things like maybe, change this press here, or, learn how to take advice from this player because this player might not like do or might not take your particular coaching style right now. Maybe you need to like go talk to him a little different. So it was like the little tiny things like that really stuck with me, and I think that still stick with me. And you know, as I've said it before, that's where I get my know your personnel. Maybe get off my high horse a little bit because in the beginning that's all I wanted to do. I was like, oh, I want to be my coach. I want to be my own coach. I don't want to listen to this game plan. I have my own plays. Stuff like that. I think we all do it when we first start off because we're like, oh, I'm a coach now. you know,
Right.
where it's kind of
Right.
like that power, and you're like, oh, I could do whatever I want with my team.
Right. It's that illusion of control, right? I'm like, oh, we're gonna develop, we're gonna play exactly like this. We're gonna look like the Spurs. We're gonna look like the Warriors. Like having like kind of these thoughts and minds, and then we have to kind of go back to what you're talking about is know your personnel, right? Do we have players that can make reads to do that, or do we have a different team and we have to play a different style of basketball? Right. I actually had that conversation the other day. Because I see the game a different way. And I was like, set a pin down, set a flare, and coach was just like, he's like, these guys are not going to do that. I'm like,
Exactly.
come on,
Exactly.
I'm like, why not? Like maybe that's just me as a young coach, kind of like exactly what we're talking about, like a little, not necessarily arrogant, but like in
It's like
terms of,
naive. You think that
naive,
you're gonna be like the next, like
right,
you said, you're gonna be like the next Greg Popovich or the next Coach
right,
K. Like right off the
right,
bat, you're like, because I was the same way. I was like, oh, I'm gonna implement all my presses because I like to think of myself as a defensive coach. I love
yeah,
pressing teams, but I have
yep,
to realize
yep.
that maybe my team can't press, or I don't have the
Yeah,
I don't have
yeah,
the
yeah,
fast enough
yeah,
personnel,
yeah,
or whatever that might be. Or maybe you do this year, maybe you don't. It's just like one of those things where I'm
yeah,
like, okay, maybe I need to step back and just learn my own players before I say anything or do anything, because I'm definitely been in that seat, um, and I've definitely been like, okay, go run this, and they'd be like, what,
what,
you know?
yeah. And I think that's the challenge of high school basketball too, because we get players. We don't. I mean, we get to like cut players, sure, but at the end of the day, we're not college basketball coaches. We can't recruit towards a system, right? We
Right.
we get the players, right? And I'm not saying like that's a problem, right? It's a privilege to be able to do that and coach. It's just like it changes the style of how you coach. And I'm not sure where you're at. I'm not at a private school. We're at a public school, so we can't really
Right.
recruit, right? We just get who shows up at our doorstep, and we're like, let's roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is going to be a huge learning year for me because I'm going from that small, 300 kids, 6 through 12 school. And La Cueva's a 5A public school in the APS
Right.
system that 2,000 kids, then they're high school. And that's just a high school. So I'm going from, a 6 through 12 to a high school, but that's like 3 times bigger. And they have different policies and different, a whole different basketball structure that, this is going to be my first year there. I'm going to be learning, but thankfully, I've been there for a little bit of the preseason. And, I'm super excited because, again, it's another huge learning opportunity. I'm with a coach that I know. I already feel comfortable in their system. And, I'm just starting to gain my insight on the players, and I'm trying to, again, make myself known. I've been to some football games already. I'm still trying to go to, some volleyball games or whatever that might be. But it's definitely going to be a learning curve because, at the old school, um, super small, no cut rules. It was just a whole different system. Here we got the cuts, it's the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to have to learn how to adapt my coaching style and my, I guess, ways of thinking completely. But, that's just something that goes with the job, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, that's a fun part of the journey. We're always leveling up. We're always getting not necessarily new opportunities, but every season is a new opportunity to grow as a coach, whether you're at the same program or a new program and kind of develop into that, different role. What are you looking to, kind of really expand on your game with coaching? It could be kind of more of a basketball, kind of realm of how you teach and give feedback, or are you looking to level up your leadership? What are you really hoping to get out of this season? I know you talked about, learning, but and
Right.
sometimes it's right. You got to learn on the fly, right? You can't plan your learning all the time. But is there anything you're
Exactly.
kind of going into this season with?
I think this season I think my it's going to be a piece of everything. I
Yeah,
really like to have like maybe a little like nuggets of information, or maybe work on a little bit of my leadership skills a little bit more. I feel like they're pretty good, but I feel like we can always learn, always upgrade.
right,
And definitely on the basketball side of things, I'm a big like X's and O's type coach. I think I do better with the more tactics based, strategic play calling type stuff. So I kind of want to get
right,
better at that. Maybe like making better reads, taking a little bit more time in, the film room, or, I try to do 30 minutes a night on just, you know, maybe going on YouTube and trying to find new plays. I watch a lot of like the UConn women's basketball team. I think they have a lot of great plays. I think, um, college women's college basketball is so underrated. you know, if you watch it, it's so fundamentally sound. Um, and I think I spent a lot of time watching their plays because I think their plays are run to perfection. You know, um, because it's like one of those things. Women's basketball is just so fundamental. I
right.
feel like boys and men's basketball. We're great. It's great to watch, but it's a lot of like the same. It's a lot of ISOs, a lot of like, you know, uh, top of the key screen roll, you know, kick out to the corner threes. It's like the same. Everybody has the same uh, play calling. It's kind of like repetitive. It's not really plays, at least in the NBA. Um, that's what I've seen, at least. I don't know if you would agree or not, but the NBA is definitely like one of those things where it's just kind of like, man, like, are they trying anymore? You know?
No, the NBA is clear, pure entertainment. At least during the regular season, you're obviously seeing some more actions during the postseason, some better defense. But in general, I would say, yeah, WNBA women's basketball. I always tell my players to watch women's basketball because they are just fundamentally better than men. Because men
Right.
get away with it with their athleticism. They do a lot of
The
things that are
height,
just,
or
yeah,
you know,
right, exactly. Hide some of their deficiencies, and that's why I always encourage people to, instead of kind of, well, what do they do it now? They hold themselves back, but they reclass and they go down, right? Obviously, so they can eventually play up and play at a different age grade. Well,
right,
in reality, you're going to become a better player if you actually reclass up. I mean, obviously that means you lose a year, so I'm not necessarily recommending that. But maybe for like a club basketball, you're going to be better
right.
because you have to be more skilled when you play people who are more athletic and taller. And I have this young fifth grader, and I also coach his older brother who's in ninth grade. And the fifth grader is incredibly skilled because he always gets his butt kicked by this ninth grader. Like he
Yep.
has to be skilled to like even get one bucket on his ninth grade brother who's literally like 2 feet taller than him. Not actually, but
Right,
like
right.
those different skills is so important. So you talked about like learning. I'm curious, what you talked about UConn's women's college basketball for their plays. What other kind of resources are you watching or reading or learning to become a better coach?
I to I do a lot of audiobooks. So like Start with Why. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's like a leadership
Yep.
book.
Yep.
I try to read from time to time, maybe get like a new audiobook on, leadership, or maybe like a coaching book. Um, I can't remember the name of the title, but I had a book by or book of Coach Belichick, Patriots. Trying to learn about his like dynasty, and I know it's football, but all coaches kind of
It's
think similarly.
right.
Um, I think little like pieces of information like that, or resources like that, really can elevate somebody's way of thinking. It definitely changed mine. Um, I watch a lot of basketball. Like,
Yeah.
whether that be going to another school and, just watching their whatever team play or watching the NBA. Like, I was dissing on the NBA for whatever entertainment, but, I still love the NBA.
Right.
Um,
Of course.
any basketball, like I said, I just watch so much of it. I try to, retain little things. I do watch it for entertainment, but I do definitely sit with, maybe like a play app, try and like recreate a play I saw, or write it down. I definitely do a lot of that. Will I use it? Maybe.
Yeah.
Again, it
Right.
falls into
Right.
like what team I have that year and like can they execute what I'm trying to get done here. But um, yeah, I definitely think, and honestly, there's a lot of podcasts, and like I said, you're doing a great job at it, getting these other coaches, and I think learning other people's perspectives on this is just like so beneficial, so beneficial. Just because you get to see how other people kind of think whenever they're coaching or like their philosophies and how your philosophies line up, maybe. But I think that's huge. I think we're all same but different, you know?
100%. Yeah, we have our own different styles, but we at the end of the day, most of us coaches want to impact players and we want to win, right? Like at the end of the day, like
Right,
we have similar
right.
goals. It's just we, have different areas and think about different ways to get to those goals, which is fine. And I think that's the beauty of having a guest like you on the podcast and other people that come together and have these conversations and dialogues. And I'm just curious, as a young coach like yourself, like what kind of vision do you see for yourself? Do you want to eventually get into collegiate coaching, or do you want to stay in the varsity world? Do you want to expand into professional coaching? What are your kind of thoughts on that?
I really, I think about that a lot, honestly. I'm glad you asked that. I really want to go as far as I'm able to go. I know that's really
Yeah.
cliche and it sounds, like I'm dodging the question, but really, this is my passion. This is what I love. I love
Yeah.
basketball. I love coaching. I would like to coach collegiate level and maybe the NBA. You know, I would love it. I know it's kind of like one of those things where I never played in the NBA. I didn't play in a huge D1 school or whatever, but I know basketball. I watch it so much, and I feel like some people like it's like another respect thing. They're like, oh, you don't have that resume? I don't know if I could trust you. you know.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing that's kind of holding me back a little bit, but it's also like it drives me to become even better as a coach. Take that extra hour to watch film or take that extra day to watch some basketball, to be more sound in the game and know what you're talking about. I think that's so not more beneficial, but it helps so much to gain that level of respect that I'm kind of missing, like that piece that I'm missing.
Yeah, we have to be extra knowledgeable, right? Some people, they're just going to respect, right? Because if that's how they look, they look like a more experienced coach. It doesn't matter if they probably have only played football or, because
Right.
one of the things that I've come across with a lot of coaches and coaches who are more talented basketball wise than me, because their athleticism has allowed them to go far in the game, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can teach the fundamentals of basketball, right? Whether it's young people, middle school, and so I think that's where young, hungry coaches like us who are watching, film, are watching different breakdowns, are watching leadership, and are hungry, right? We're learning how to coach, right? Like playing and coaching is way different. And I learned that my first year of coaching,
Oh,
where I
yeah.
was like, like kind of what you were talking about. I was saying things and they would look at me like I was like Santa Claus, like, what in the world are you talking about? Like,
Right.
I think we just have to continue to learn and be a sponge and just like anything, right? If I want to be a great player, I got to be in the lab in the gym. Well, if I want to be a great coach, I better be knowledgeable about the subject if I really want to make an impact on them.
Exactly. And exactly. And it's like, I think I've told so many players that are like, they'll come up to me and they'll get all mad. They're like, oh, coach made this play call wrong or you did this or that. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. I don't think you understand that being a player and being a coach, way two different
Way
things. Like I
different.
see the game
Way
in a
different.
different way that you see the game, right? And maybe I did make the wrong play call. We've all done it. But it's like, you know, what I see is much more different than what you're seeing right now. I think I might have an idea, you know? Or like I think the biggest thing too is sometimes I'm like, if you just listen to what I say and you do what I say, I promise it'll be all right. And then they do it, and it's we score or whatever. And I'm like, I told you, just listen. I feel like nowadays they just always want to go back and forth. They're like, oh, coach, I want to do play one instead of play three. I'm like, it's not gonna work right here,
Yeah, yeah. I get that, and that's the fun. That's the art of coaching, right? And
Yeah.
that's the joy of it. And sometimes, like other day, I'll share a quick story before we hit the 2 minute mark of our podcast. They were like texting me because we had to practice outside because other gyms were being used, and they were like complaining. I'm like, oh my god, these kids are so lucky that they get to play basketball. Blah blah blah. Keep in mind they're ninth grade. I was just like, it's just that reminder of like, okay, this is why I coach, so I can teach them like, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to use this as an opportunity. We're not complaining this year, right?
Yeah.
We get the opportunity to play basketball. You know how many people I just cut 20 plus people that would kill to have your spot that would play outside. So if you don't want to play, like I can go call them, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
it's just having that teaching moment with them and recognizing that, they're still young people, they're still learning and they see the world different. And I think that's sometimes as a coach, we expect them to think like a coach. It's like, no, maybe we have one or two players that think like the coach, but the rest of them, like we really have to work on teaching every single day. So as we, kind of enter that 2 minute mark of the fourth quarter of our podcast, what would you give like final piece of advice for the coaches and even the parents that are listening to this podcast on how we can make the most amount of impact on our athletes?
Keeping the energy up. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how beneficial energy is, keeping your energy up, keeping your players' energy up. That carries. Even in a game, say like you're on the bench, but you hit like a three to tie it up. You don't want like a dead bench. That's what my head coach and I have been talking about recently is energy will carry you to greatness. That like just being positive and not tearing each other down and just keeping the pride, keeping your school pride, the pride for basketball, pride in yourself will carry you out through life. And I teach that as, not only in basketball, but throughout your life. It's life lessons.
100%. Yeah, no, that's incredibly crucial and important. So, energy raises human performance. That's something I heard this summer. So I'm in 100% agreement with you on that. How can people, if for those that listen and really want to connect with you, because I agree with your message, how can they reach out and find you and look at the work that you're doing?
Okay. Probably my Instagram, which is coach_Goots. That's probably the biggest or the best way to, reach out to me. That has all my other social medias linked.
Yep.
I try to be active on there. I'm trying to start, my own projects, kind of like yourself. So hopefully in the coming, months or maybe year, I'll have my own coaching, one-on-one coaching going on. So I'm just hoping to keep on evolving and keep on helping the youth,
There we go. I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Coach G.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.